Hold on, it's taking a
Okay.
little bit to broadcast,
All right. Well, whenever we're ready.
and it's loading right now. Oh, wait, okay, we're live.
Good. Awesome.
All right, what's up?
Well, not too much. I was just reading the article you gave me, and now we're
Oh,
gonna have some fresh, hot takes.
yep, plenty of hot fucking takes.
Yeah, yeah.
But before we get to that, I wanted to before we started, I wanted to say like during the last stream when you left, I ended up talking to this dude, that dude who came in for like 2.5 hours, and like he was like a really smart motherfucker. And like after we finished talking, I went to like him on YouTube, but I couldn't like the way it works on YouTube. I guess you can't click on the name in the chat to get to their profile. So I tried searching his name on YouTube, and I couldn't find him. So
Yeah.
it's Thomas Shelley. So Thomas, if you're like still fucking listening, dude, like hit me up because I wanna stream with you again. You're a smart motherfucker.
He seemed really informative. Like he really knew what he was talking about.
Did you listen to that stream? The rest of it?
Well, I listened to a couple of minutes after that, but I saw you guys went on for a while. But yeah, he was a pretty smart fucking dude. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I was expecting a fucking idiot. I was not expecting to do that
yeah.
that smart. So
Well, we originally we opened it up so we could have that crazy truther to come on, but instead we actually got a legitimate
I don't think he was
person.
I don't think he was a truther. He was just like an Alex Jones lizard gay frog guy.
Yeah, that's what a truther is, I think. But
Oh really? I thought truther was just you thought 9/11 was done by the government.
I always thought truther was just general conspiracy theorists,
Hmm.
like because you have a 9/11 truther, but then you have other truthers. But anyway,
Yeah, I might have
semantics.
gotten
Yeah. Well, if we want to move on to this, I guess since you brought this discussion up, I kind of want to hear from you first. What you think about it?
um
Rachel.
yeah, well, I mean, I kind of listened to this topic earlier this morning because Sargon of Akkad did a video on it. That this do you know who Rachel Dolezal is?
Yes, I do. I also know
Okay,
who Sargon is as well. Very one of my favorite YouTubers.
yeah, I love Sargon. But he kind of brought up the point of like, why is this chick like still in the news? Like, what do we allow like flat Earth people to be on the mainstream media on a daily basis? But which I thought was kind of funny. But I mean, I do have some general points I want to make. But I mean, I thought it'd be interesting for you as a guy coming from like a psychology background of
Well, yeah,
just on the fundamental issue of like, can someone be transracial in the way that they can be transgender?
yeah. Well, that's right. And I guess what Rachel is saying is that if you don't have to identify as the gender that you were born with, why do you have to identify as the race that you were um, born with? I
Right.
guess.
And in
Which,
some ways, I think it's actually you can almost make a better case for it because I mean, melanin in the skin, to me, that's like not as crucial of a thing as actual genitalia
yeah.
in some
Well,
ways, but like
right.
socially, it's way more taboo.
Yeah. So, like, I guess what are we trying to say is that like black people are different from white people if you identify as a different race.
Right.
Therefore, you're a different person. And to me, this
Yeah.
sort of relates to the issue of when you have certain people, the Black Lives Matter movement, wanting white people to shut up because they're not black, therefore they can't contribute anything to the conversation.
Right.
It's like it's that sort of ridiculousness that sort of enables a culture of people wanting to identify as black when the truth is, what the fuck does that mean anyway? Like, why can't now Rachel was lying about it, and that's a whole different issue. But why can't a white person be an advocate for the NAACP or, stand up for black rights or even feel like that they identify with the black community? Like, why is that an issue to begin with?
Yeah, like I don't know if race is in like entirely a social construct, but I would say it's like 60 to 80% at least a social construct. Because I mean, if you just think like of like the color of your melanin, it means almost absolutely nothing, from like a biological perspective, but it means fucking everything, and there are all these assumptions that go into it, like on a cultural level.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. And so, but then that kind of goes into the whole. like if you say that, for example, like you'll be called racist by extreme SWJs. They're like, well, people who grow up in black communities might have a different set of attitudes and personalities. Some people will identify you as racist. Of
Yeah,
course, I don't agree with that. Um, but it's like the same people who will criticize anyone who makes that statement are the same type of people, I guess, who get offended by someone who wants to identify as a black person. Um,
right. I mean,
I
I
guess,
think that's actually like the less racist standpoint because I mean the only other option is it's genetic, like the differences between white and black people. Like it goes further than just skin color. That there are actually like biological differences between people of different skin color.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we get lumped into. I mean, people of different skin colors get lumped into different socioeconomic statuses, especially in America. Black people are predominantly poor, and I mean, there are white people who are poor too, but I mean, they're I guess because of slavery and the history of it, it's been they it's almost like tribalized that people of a certain skin color tend to stay in their own group. But I mean, that's almost entirely a social construct or it's a historical construct because of the slave trade. You know,
right, yeah, and it's certainly reasonable for someone who's black or any other race to not be comfortable in integrating themselves within the white community. Um, it's the unfortunate reality is that racism is still very much alive, even if it's not to the extent as it was even 40 or 50 years ago. And I do think that manifests itself when people equate the black population to trashy neighborhoods, poverty, living off food stamps, welfare queens, and just kind of this narrative that if you're black, there's a bigger chance that you're going to be lazy, don't have a job, and father a lot of kids. Of course, that's not specific to just them, of course, but it's certainly a narrative that especially plays here.
right?
Of course, we have a huge issue of we got the North Side where it was that the North Side Four Corners used to be the place to be, but then after I-49 was built, the white population moves out and they just leave it for the black people, for a lack of a better term, because it's no longer considered a desirable place. So racism is still uh, very much alive. But then we sort of get to the issue where, someone who is white, for example, they want to join a Black Lives Matter protest and they're being treated with hostility and they're being accused of trying to monopolize or take over or make it a white thing. It's basically an extreme ad hominem fallacy where it's you're not black, so how could you possibly advocate for the black movement? Um, and so, kind of relating back to this article,
There's a part of the article where they mentioned a piece that the website Mike did where they actually said that the race gender comparison was actually the very worst of white privilege. That Dolezal calling yourself black is actually a case of white privilege. But I mean, the thing is, like to me, like there's nothing logically stopping you from saying that a man who wants to become a woman is then like male privilege or it's like part of the patriarchy. Like there's
yeah,
nothing. Like if you're gonna make that argument, you have to logically make the other argument.
yeah, that's what I didn't understand with what she said, like I feel like the what's her name, Melissa Harris Perry
Yeah.
is trying to minimize like being white or black is just a skin color when we all know that it is a social construct. If you grow up in an area where maybe you're a white person but you live in a very well-off neighborhood where the white culture is very country club, very snooty, you don't relate to them, and then maybe among a population of a different race they just have a certain type of culture that you relate with more.
Right.
And yeah, okay, maybe you shouldn't have to come out of your race to do that, but we all know practically that race is much more than skin color, and we've made it that way. And so maybe someone says, yeah, I'm more, I feel more integrated with, I don't know, the Black or the Asian population, and I kind of want to be considered that. And so why is that white privilege? Like, I think that's nonsense, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because that person is facing the same sort of, like, even though he was born with a certain physical traits, he feels very out of place with it, and he feels more in place with something that's not him or her. And so why is that different? And I think that's the point you're making as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, especially now, there's no set like line between white culture and black culture. Like I grew up like listening to like Bone Thugs and Harmony and R. Kelly and shit. Like I loved hip hop, and like I always thought like to in a certain way that black people were better than me because like you could be a rapper, you could be a rapper if you're black, and it's a lot. You didn't see as many white rappers. Just in general, and hip hop is like it was like the coolest fucking thing ever. Uh, I mean, Nick's in the chat. He said 98% of people I've known and met around my age don't give a shit about race. I think that was like true, like 10 years ago. Like to me, there was just like it was just like a fucking non-issue. Then like when I got around college, like fucking around like Occupy Wall Street, it became like a big fucking issue again.
Can you clarify what wasn't a big issue?
Race.
You don't think race was a big issue 10 years ago?
Just maybe just I wasn't like as politically engaged or something, but like it was just something that
Maybe,
no one gave a fuck about to me. Like, and there were no protests, there was no Black Lives Matter, there was nothing like that happening. Pretty much everyone was just pissed off about the Iraq War. We were all like united on that front, and then like something fucking happened, and race became like a thing again. Like I remember like when I started college in like 2009, I had a professor say, like she said like to the class that like you guys will never know like how bad race was. Like you guys will never know what it was like to have racial tension because because you guys don't care about race pretty much. And then like 3 years later, I was like, well, that turned out not to be true.
Yeah. I'm so aware. Well, it certainly depends on the experience. I mean, for me, I went to Como, and I felt that it was very racially segregated. A lot of whites using the N word, a lot of blacks, calling whites crackers and making fun of them. It's I don't want to say it wasn't the '60s, but there was definitely a separation. And I heard a lot of rhetoric, especially like even from my old friends saying, they don't want to be treated like animals, but they act like animals. And like you heard stuff like that. I mean, that was the early 2000s. Now granted, I don't have an answer for as why there wasn't an organized type of movement like there is today. I mean, that's a good question. But I mean, I would say, at least in my experience, and which was one of the better schools in Lafayette, there was certainly a lot of racial tension.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know that much about it.
But did you like the way you talk about hip hop and it wasn't a big deal? I mean, did you hang around with a lot of blacks growing up?
Yeah, I went to a public high school, and it was I guess there was like a segregation there, but there was like I had black friends in my quote unquote clique, it just like wasn't a big deal. I kind of hung around the stoners, and I think when you're kind of in that clique, there's just sort of a live and let live attitude in general. You just want to smoke weed. Not that I did, but that was just kind of who I chose to hang around with. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's because you went to school in New Iberia, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's what's so extra baffling about it. But I guess the stoners overtake any type of culture.
There was that sort of like, there was sort of like that calling cracker and like calling like the N word and stuff. But to me, I think to a certain extent that needs like to happen, have any sort of kind of harmony between different people. Like if there's someone, like there's an Irish dude, you need like to be friends with him. You have to make fun of him for being fucking Irish, Like you have to have
Yeah.
that sort of camaraderie. There's a solidarity that forms in that. Like there's a philosopher named Slavoj Žižek who makes that point with Eastern European people. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there. I mean, I don't remember like any like huge race incidents that like cause protest in the streets. You know, like there are now. I just don't remember that. I guess there was obviously. I mean, there was obviously racial tension, but maybe not to the degree that it is today. I guess that's a better way to put it.
I, I would agree with you. Well, I mean, the school that I went to, Westminster, um, well, I mean, the school was almost predominantly white, but just what, a month ago, over at the Opelousas campus where I went to school, there were two or three, whatever, idiots that hung a noose on a tree at a Christian school outside.
Really.
Again, that was, I don't know
I
anyone.
mean, but you have to consider: are they doing that because they legitimately hate black people, or are they doing that because they're fucking idiot teenagers who just want to be offensive?
Well, I mean, it could be the latter, but I was a fucking idiot teenager.
I really like even being in the deep south. I don't think I've ever met someone who like legitimately like hated like who was actually like a race realist who actually hated black people because of the color of their skin. Like
Well,
they
I
have
don't.
biases and stuff like that, but I think it's all maybe it's arguments they make because they're poor or something. Like I
Right.
don't, but I don't think it's like strictly because of skin color.
But I think like, but that's how racism works. So like, no one really. I don't even think back then anyone would say this person is this color, so I hate him. What they would do is they would say, well, people with the skin color, they're like A, B, C, they're dangerous, they're rabid, and sort of making these conclusions that we're bound to assume. So it's like, I don't hate this person because there's a skin color. I
I don't.
hate them because people with the skin color always do these things. Oh, and by the way, they discriminate against us too. I mean, that's how racism works. They have these ways of justifying them.
Yeah, I mean, I look at like, I mean, there are YouTubers now who are super into like race realism, and I've like heard them like their live chats and stuff. And I mean, like the alt right, like their big thing is like IQ, and they just fundamentally believe that white people and black people have different IQs. Like black people have lower IQs and white people have higher IQs, and that's sort of the reason for like the divide. And
Right. Well, I mean,
so
that's yeah.
and I think that like that argument goes back to like I think that was like one of the big arguments like in the 20s and shit with the KKK. And like I think they actually believe that skin color determines a person's like character traits.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, that is how racism is justified, and that's why it's persistent. Like, when you think of the lynchings that happened, the lynchings weren't just hanging someone because they were black. Usually, what would happen is, in many cases, a white woman would falsely accuse a black man of raping her. And of course, the idea was, well, the black people are like that. They're the rapists. And of course,
Yeah,
the
with like
white
well,
people
yeah,
would
with Emmett
lie.
Till, that's what happened.
What's that?
With Emmett Till, that's what happened, and that was one of the most fucked up
Yeah.
cases ever.
But I mean,
Um,
Emmett Till, yeah, well, Emmett Till is the big one, but that was not isolated. In fact, one of the big things, in fact, Sargon actually did a really good video that you should check out about sort of this culture that modern day feminists are trying to push about listen and believe. Don't, but like if you investigate, that's insensitive. You got to listen and believe, and getting innocent people like Duke and Virginia in trouble, but relating that to the listen and believe is what spurred a lot of the lynchings of the early 20th and 19th century. The point being is, it's not just skin color, so let's do something. It's skin color, and that's associated with negative stereotypes that we know they're true. Like
yeah,
they sort of have an odd way of justifying it. And so, I mean, I think like, so sort of what you're saying, like about the justifications, like to me, that's what racism is. I mean, that's racism in its most extreme form.
right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess to answer your question, like, because I was an idiot teenager who liked to offend people. Like, I was a jerk off, but I would never hang a noose because I know the implications. So and I mean, like, I mean, obviously the teenagers knew what the noose is for, and so they don't well,
I
like
mean,
they,
you never drew a swastika in high school.
well, well, no, I never drew a swastika, but like I didn't.
I had friends that did, but
Well,
I think
yeah, I mean, well, did your friends like paint a swastika on a synagogue?
no,
Like,
well, they drew it. I remember I had one friend who drew it on his the top of his hand, and he got suspended. But
yeah, you probably should.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like to me though, there's a difference between drawing a swastika on a piece of paper, like I don't know, just to see what it would be like, but then go into a synagogue or go into any public place, like going to the bridge, the Chapelaya Basin Bridge on Pinhook had a
yeah.
swastika painted on it. It's like to me, there's a huge difference. Um, to me, that's a difference between drawing a picture of a noose or playing hangman on a board and then banging a noose out on a tree in a area that's historically segregated and racist, like Opelousas or Sunset.
Wait, where did they draw the noose, or where did they bring the noose?
Well, I believe they said they hung it right outside the campus, so that would be in Sunset.
The
Um,
school campus.
yeah, outside the school
Okay.
campus. The school campus is in Sunset, which of course, Sunset, Opelousas. I mean, St. Landry Parish, one of the most racist areas in the entire country, one of the most segregated, one of the most uneducated, impoverished
Yeah.
as well. Um,
Opelousas. Nick knows what we're talking about. Local.
Local. Okay. Is that where he's from?
No, Nick's from like New York or some shit.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. So I was wondering. Oh, okay, never mind. The sarcasm went right over my head, right over it. So, yeah, think Andrew, think. So is Nick still in the chat? Hold on, I'm gonna pull. Here. Yeah, just so we
Yeah,
can
Nick's
get
there.
Nick's there.
He's taking your side for once.
Dang, man. Well, it's good. He hasn't hashtag fired Mills yet, so I'm making progress.
Yeah, he did a few times last time, but
Yeah, oh, yeah, I know. There we go. Oh, better band Mills anyway. So, but yeah, so I guess going back to this article, I mean, Rachel kind of sounds like a dick because she had been dishonest about what she is, and that's kind of where she loses credibility. But I think it's very careless to dismiss, I guess I would call it race dysphoria by saying it wouldn't be anything like gender dysphoria. And of course, one of the arguments is, well, conservatives will use that to delegitimize gender dysphoria. But they're doing that already. Like, that doesn't really give them ammo. And frankly, that's on conservatives.
right.
I think the reason that Rachel is making, even though she is a liar, the actual argument is not that unsound. And it's not something that should be so easily dismissed in the same way that women shouldn't dismiss transgender men.
Would you call that a type of body dysmorphia? Dysmorphia is that
Or dysphoria. I mean,
dysphoria? Yeah.
yeah, dysphoria. And just to clarify, even though like gender dysphoria is a term used, in the DSM, it's a diagnosis, but it's not in the same way that, having homosexual tendencies, as they would call it, as like a disease that needed to be cured. Like, it's not that sort of type of issue. That's just used to describe the issues associated with someone of a gender wanting to be another gender,
Right.
but facing depression, bullying, like that type of stuff. So just to clarify.
I actually heard I've heard like this one argument from conservatives that actually I've never been able to like debunk, and if somebody could, I probably wouldn't believe it anymore. But like I think it was the director of Johns Hopkins University, where I think the like transgender surgeries began. That was like where the first one was had. But like he like made the argument that like transgenderism is basically like a form of body dysmorphia or dysphoria or whatever, and he said like okay, but and another type of body dysmorphia is anorexia, right? And when you have someone who's anorexic, you don't treat them by saying you don't treat a 90-pound girl by saying you should lose 20 more pounds because you feel like you're really fat. Like that would be unhealthy. So why should the same thing? So why should we apply that logic to someone who feels like that they're the incorrect gender?
Well, because someone who feels that they're the incorrect gender, the goal that they want to reach is not harmful to their well-being. Someone who is anorexic, wants to keep losing weight, wants to stop eating, I mean, that can result in some very fatal consequences up
Okay.
to death.
Okay.
So
It's just a level of harm.
yeah, it's just right, exactly. It's sort of like, well, if someone wants drugs, well, drugs make them feel good. Why don't we just let them use drugs? Well, the answer to that is because drugs are extremely harmful to them and can be
I mean, if
harmful.
someone's like super intent, they want to have like the surgery though. When I don't know, wouldn't like chopping off the penis be considered harm?
I'm not really educated on that. I know there's been some misinformation, especially from Liberty University, describing like the dangers of the surgery, which have been exaggerated. But honestly, I'm not an expert on
Yeah, I'm
that.
not either. And
I
I
just,
love Blair White on YouTube. She's like this. She's a super hot transgender woman who like
mhm.
makes me question things about myself. But uh, yeah, I mean, she kind of she I mean she has some interesting. I kind of just go off what she says basically.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I just don't know because I don't know that many transgender people.
yeah. But I mean, and again, that goes down to like not necessarily everyone like that wants to have the surgery or wants to have a certain level of surgery. You know, sometimes they just, I mean, it can be as light as like cross dressing.
Right.
Yeah, and but it's the religious right is like, well, that's unacceptable too. Well, you don't even have the weak surgery argument to back that up. It's that person wants to cross dress, and that's not harmful to his well being. And well, any harm that would come would be the result of other people behaving foolishly.
Yeah, I know there's some pastors that cross dress. There's got to be a bunch. That seems like it's like an
Okay.
underground thing.
Oh, sure, yeah, yeah. A lot of never trust a man who's trying really hard to keep morals. He is hiding some real shit, like cross dressing. That's shitty, right? I'm kidding. Um, but yeah, so it's when I first read this article, I guess I was kind of agreeing with it, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of a bit of a horseshit SJW type of thing. You can't preach tolerance for people who identify as different genders, but then discriminate and delegitimize people who um, maybe want to identify as different races. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like
I
if
think it's
there's a
hypocritical.
like if I'm just like walking down the street and there's like a woman who's like obviously uh or a man who's obviously a woman who's dressed as a woman who like demands that I call them by the pronoun she, I would probably just call them she. Like it would just be like the easier thing to do, and
Right.
I probably would apply that same logic to like someone who's clearly white who says they're black. Uh, you know, if they tell me they're black, I'd be like okay,
Yeah. It's
it's the same thing. Like it neither one really affects my life, so I don't think that I probably wouldn't think too deeply into it.
no, and it's. I mean, it's one of those things. If they want to be called that, you should let them do it, and that should be the end of the story. I mean, your discomfort really is not a priority, um, and yeah, and that includes the racial thing as well. Sorry, Melissa. I'll never
Debunked.
forget that there was this one horrible meme that someone posted on Facebook. This was like I think a year ago at this point, but it was basically saying white people cannot suffer from racism. And I remember saying like
Can't suffer from racism.
they cannot suffer from racism. And at that time, I was working at a vet rental where all the Mexicans and the blacks were being very racist towards me. And I was the only white person working there. And so I took extra special offense to that. And I told him, like, no, you're wrong. Like, this is bullshit. And he said, well, you weren't a slave and you weren't like drinking at other water fountains. I'm like, well, just like they're different forms of racism. Like, yeah, probably whites historically have not received the same form of treatment from other races, but that doesn't mean that they've been racist against. And there are some individual white people who have probably been treated really badly at some point. Mainly, I would assume in the case of the Tennessee couple that was murdered. brutally 10 years ago by a group of black people. I think that was a hate crime. But
Yeah, actually, to a certain extent, I actually agree with the SJW argument that racism is prejudice plus power. But I don't think they take it far enough because, like in that situation you were in, you were the minority in that situation. Like there was a majority of black people and you, a white person or Hispanic, black people and Hispanics all ganging up against one person. So I mean, so in that situation, you were there was racism happening to a white person, you know, it just because like collectively in society, that's not how it usually works. Doesn't mean that in this one situation that's actually how it panned out.
right, yeah. Well, the more power you have, the more catastrophic the effects of racism will be. But I remember arguing with him, and he was not having it. Like, he was yelling back at me. He was telling me to check my privilege. I swear to God, if I hear that one more time, I'm going to break something. But I remember, like, because it was me and several other guys. They were objecting to him, and I remember he said, "Why is it that only white people are upset about this?" Again, shitty ad hominem fallacy. And I responded to him. I said, well, the reason why we're the ones responding is because you're the ones you're the ones saying that we can't be discriminated against. Like, you're attacking us personally. You're not attacking blacks, you're not attacking Mexicans, you're not attacking Asians, you're attacking the whites. And you're telling people that their certain experiences aren't what they experience, and you know better than that. But I mean, the fact that it's just white people that are disagreeing with you has no bearing on it anyway. And then he blocked me. Wonderful.
Oh, this was online.
Yeah, this was just a Facebook thing. I was trying to have a conversation with him. And I mean, that happened like shortly after someone posted the whole like, for you people trying to, you white people trying to advocate for police brutality, you need to stop because it's not your problem, which is, by the way, horseshit. And I remember I responded to her and I said, "Are you serious? What about the guy in Missouri? What about? I mean, I can
Yeah,
give you.
what about Syria? What about like every international
Yeah,
problem?
it's not. I mean, I think black people get a bunch of shit from cops more than more than whites, but I think it's a general. I don't think it's exclusively a black problem. That's all I was trying to say.
Right.
And again, like, she wasn't having it. I was a racist and sexist because I suggested that maybe someone who is white can add something of value to the Black Lives Matter movement. And just because they're trying to do that doesn't mean they're trying to monopolize the movement. But they won't have that. It's you're either one thing or you're the crazy right-wing conservative. And that's what frustrates people like Sargon. That's what frustrates people like Armored Skeptic, and to a lesser extent, the Amazing Atheist, and certain types of liberal YouTubers who are accused of not being the like liberals because they don't toe the dogmatic line of the certain part of the left whose intentions are good, but there are no subtleties that exist with them. Yeah,
I really like that. I really like the word "cuck." I think it's great. We like invented a curse word for people who are like the allies of like basically like just people who just go along with whatever majority things happening. Like the Black Lives Matter white ally is just a person who just like sits back and does just lets them like just stay silent basically and supports quietly. And like the word "cuck" kind of fits in perfectly with that idea.
I guess that kind of. Well, isn't that a word that like
It's from cuckold.
what white racists use to solicit sex?
I don't think they solicit sex from it.
Yeah, I read that somewhere. I don't remember. Then I remember like the conservatives and the
Yeah, it's a great word. Like
it is. Yeah. Well,
like
see,
I think like conservatives and memes have just been like going off the chain. Like they're so fucking good with memes.
oh Jesus. Oh
There's like the Pepe shit, like all that shit is fucking hilarious. And like liberal memes just are not as good.
They're not. Well, it's like what was I saw a meme yesterday where it was like liberals were complaining that Trump didn't want to do anything about the Syrians, and now he's bombing them and now they're upset. And I'm like, what concrete blocks? Yeah, we want them to do something. That didn't mean we wanted them to fire 50 fucking useless missiles that
Yeah.
wasted $80 million and increased stock in whatever that company is that Trump had a part of. That's not what we were talking about,
Right.
you morons. But yeah, I don't know. I actually don't see a lot of conservative memes because it kind of hit me. I don't have a lot of.
I
Uh,
just I follow pages from like every side, and
I probably should as well. It would be good podcast.
like the best thing ever is the Mike Pence memes. Have you seen those?
The Mike Pence memes. I
Yeah.
have not.
So you
Like,
remember?
are they for like Mike Pence?
Oh yeah, they love Mike Pence. Like you remember whenever they were trying to like they said Mike Pence like advocated for electroshock therapy for gay people.
Uh huh.
Like that was, yeah, and like that was supposed to be the thing that like brought down Mike Pence. But like there was just like became like these memes of Mike Pence like shooting lightning from his eyes and like turning gay people straight.
Mike,
It's the fucking funniest thing, dude.
Mike,
I laugh so hard at it every fucking time.
Mike Pence fighting Amy Schumer. 7 gays to fry. It's Mike Pence throwing a rogue Bernie. Mike Pence quickly defeats a rogue Bernie Sanders supporter, and he's throwing.
It's so fucking good.
Pence reaches for the air freshener to combat the horrific smell of curry and feces, and then passenger. It's a Johnny Quest.
Yeah, he looks just like that dude from Johnny Quest.
Come on, this cannot be a. This cannot. This has to be a. Like a satire. Well, you know what though? It actually.
Yeah, of course it's satire.
A satire of a satire, almost like exaggerating, I guess, the accusation.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they did. Like they take like an accusation, they bring it to like it's like it's furthest exaggeration, and makes it fucking hilarious.
It is.
They just send it all over the internet.
Yeah. These I just subscribed. This is great.
They are endless. Yeah.
I love that because he does. He looks like Pence does look exactly like that guy in the Johnny Quest.
Race Bannon or whatever.
It's, I love all of these memes are just Johnny Quest. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I will look forward. Why Mike Pence always looks like he's about to introduce legislation to outlaw the X-Men. Human, you dare call that thing human? Okay. 30 minutes into Brokeback Mountain, Mike Pence realized it was not a story about climbing at all. Okay. I'll save those. I'll read those on my own later. I'm having a good time. Anyway. I do actually got to get off. I got to get ready for bed. But are you going to keep talking?
I probably not. I don't think anyone else is in the chat.
It's just Nick. But
I kind of want to talk about the YouTube demonetization thing, but because I've been listening to that all week. But whatever.
Oh, is there something really new that happened? I know the whole thing.
Basically YouTube just like almost like put a freeze on like any political like channel like do you know David Pakman? He's like a center left liberal YouTube guy, and he made a video basically saying that he used to like he's getting more views on his videos now than ever. Like he's getting 500,000 a day, but like in this past week he's making like 37 cents a video when he used to make like I don't know like thousands of video.
And what's the reason for that?
Basically, all of these like the big 4 advertising companies came together and said to YouTube like they had a problem with like I guess like having their ads in front of like ISIS videos or like super extreme videos and shit like that. So YouTube basically said we're gonna fix it. And the thing they did was just like stop monetizing all of these like political shows, and like it's supposed to be temporary, but like no one really knows what's going on. There are like a lot of people who are who do this shit professionally and are like now making money.
So to combat ISIS videos, they're gonna ban monetary payments to a whole bunch of videos that aren't ISIS videos. That was their solution.
Yeah, well, a lot of the skeptic people think it's like an attack on like on them because like the mainstream media is scared of them and shit like that. But they're doing it to like liberal shows too. Like I think they're doing it to the Young Turks and they're doing it to guys like David Pakman. So
Yeah,
it's kind of all across the board.
yeah. Well, it's yeah. When all those new when that whole new set of provisions came out about like mass flagging and like kind of trying to create an industry for mass flagging and taking down offensive videos, there was a big like uproar about that.
Yeah.
And then YouTube responded by making a shitty video saying, "Oh yeah, that's not an issue at all. Oh, and yeah, by the way, I know you guys tell us that YouTube is randomly deleting subscribers, but we checked the whole 3 channels and we found out that was not the case. So you don't know what you're talking about. Fuck you guys." So
Right.
no, I had not heard of this.
Yeah, I mean, I really think YouTube. Like, I'm really like waiting for the day that like all of these big, so like me, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, that they start like getting like unmonopolized because they all pretty much have a market on what they do. Like, and I think there should be, there should be like 50 YouTubes. Like, there should be a bunch of like little one, and because I mean, when you have all the power, that they have no reason to not fuck over the people who make the content. You know?
Yeah, it looks like Google owns everything now, and everything's attached to Google. I mean, YouTube is not a money maker for Google, so Google just doesn't give a shit.
Right.
That's the
And
issue.
from what I understand, it's not Google doing this. It's the advertisers. It's like Coca-Cola. Like a bunch of big fucking companies. Like they're choosing not to advertise until this gets fixed or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. But I mean, yeah, everybody's all bitchy about it.
A problem that's Coca-Cola, by the way, who is sponsoring the World Cup in Qatar.
Yeah.
Which that, and of course that's resulted in the death of thousands of people. Oh, we're outraged at an ISIS video. Coca-Cola is the last people who should be worried about where their fucking money is going. Like,
yeah,
but no, I'm not. The problem is, it's like, I mean, even if we find another place to go to, there's such a library built up on YouTube. Like, how do you separate from YouTube? Because
yeah, you can't entirely.
YouTube is everything videos. It's shows. It's like the archive of history. You can like go look up a random commercial from 30 years ago if you want. Or, like it's like a library of history and all things that are shows. And it's the only site I know with an easily navigable interface. If you've ever been to like Daily Motion and things like that, exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But I mean, they keep fucking over their creators. I mean, YouTube's always going to exist, but I think there just needs to be other options to create like some competition in the market.
Yeah, but no one makes money off of YouTube clips anymore. At least not the ones I watch. I mean, every video now ends with a donate to my Patreon project. I mean,
they usually make like 30 to 50, like the big YouTubers like fucking Sargon and PewDiePie and all those guys. They make like, I think like 30 to 50% of their revenue is through advertising on YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, Patreon is obviously like a much better option because it's more consistent.
Because they get the money, and Patreon won't steal your money, and it won't shut down your videos.
I'm kind of hoping it gets fixed, just because like while all the serious shit was going on, like they were just making videos about how pissed off they are that they're not getting paid. I'm like, oh, come on, guys.
Yeah. Well,
it's not fucking oil field jobs. You're not in the fucking coal mines.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like I understand what you're saying, but I also understand what they're saying.
Yeah. I mean, if I was making money from YouTube, I'd be pissed off too. But
yeah. Real quick before I get off. So here's what I learned about the Pepsi commercial.
I talked to that dude about it a lot.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, I'll give my take here real quick. Number one, all artists and people who protest are 10 out of 10 models. Oh, cops are too. They're perfect 10 out of 10 models. If you have a lump on your stomach or if you're a couple pounds overweight, you're not welcome in this area of diversity. And of course, Kendall Jenner is a self-aggrandizing prick who thinks Pepsi will unite the world. And also, protests are just—they're not actual real protesting. They're just playing patty cakes and smiling. And it's a big, grand old party.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, that was, I was one of those like, oh, I bet this commercial is not as offensive, but everyone is making it. Like, no, it was actually more fucking offensive and idiotic than people were actually making it. And
I think if it wasn't like Kendall Jenner, who's just like the most annoying person on earth, like I think it maybe would have
yeah,
gotten
yeah,
past.
and
Like
it's
the
like,
fact that Kendall Jenner is joining a Black Lives Matter protest, it's like that. It just pisses everybody off.
yeah, and why the fuck is she wearing a wig? She's already kind of hot, right? So why the fuck is she wearing a blonde wig to a photo shoot? And I also love that, like, the smile on her face was like, "Oh, how cute these Black Lives Matter people! Oh, they're so dumb. Here, I'm gonna show them. Oh, just all they need is a Pepsi." I just,
Solidarity. It's a Che Guevara T-shirt. That's what they've done to Black Lives Matter. Basically, they made it
yeah,
into a Che Guevara T-shirt.
but that fucking that smug look on her face, like I've never wanted to like physically assault someone over that. It was just so enraging. I don't want to assault women, by the way. That was a joke. Don't
Nick.
get banned, by the way. Don't take me out of context. Yeah, but that was pretty. That was pretty enraging. I would love her to go and hand the cop like in real life, and then watch her ass get maced, and that would be the one time that I would support a police brutality. But that was a pretty enraging commercial.
I still haven't seen it, but I've seen like the pictures of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's worth a watch. I mean, it's 2.5 minutes of torture, and you might not live through it, but I would watch it. You'll see. You'll see very quickly why it was so.
Hashtag Mills beats women.
No, don't listen. Whatever your name is, yeah, Mills beats women. They Nick doesn't have any happy hashtags for me. I want to. I want him to get me trending in a more. By the way, fuckface. Since you're saying I beat women, dysphoria is spelled with a PH, not an F. So go fuck yourself, Nick. I'm sorry.
Damn. Blow, blow.
Yeah. Well, anyway. All right. I gotta get off. Gotta go to bed.
All right.
All right. Cool. All right. You have a good night.
See you.
All right.
Okay. Nick, you got anything for me? Now that Mills is gone. I really thought we would argue a lot more about the Rachel Dolezal thing, but we actually kind of agreed. Well, I didn't really know where I stood on it, but so Mills, I guess, kind of helped me out because it's kind of a weird issue. Okay, well, that's all we got. Then I guess I'm going to bed. So see y'all next week, or if something else comes up soon, we'll do another one. I kind of want to do one Monday or Tuesday, but maybe I can get some like streamers lined up or something. All right. See you guys. Peace.